Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Magic the Conversation. I know I was supposed to stream this yesterday, but I had some company over and it got too late. But we're gonna make this video today and we're going to go through the Homelands set in Magic the Gathering. The set symbol is a globe. Homelands was released in October of 1995, and it's supposed to be the second expansion of the Ice Age block. Um, Even though it does share some of the mechanics from Ice Age, it's set in a different part of the Magic world. There are no snow lands, no snow permanents in the set. The plane that it takes place on is known as Olgratha. There isn't much story, as far as I know, to it, because the only names from this set that get repeated periodically in Magic are a vampire lineage, known as the Singer vampires, and the Planeswalker Sarah. But Homelands is kind of like one of the lesser successful. It's got a lot of the weak cards in it. But we're just going to go through the list today and see what the set had to offer. We are starting out with Abbey Gargoyles, 5 mana, 3/4 flying with protection from red. Its cost is a little expensive. Hey Butter, yes, I scheduled Pokemon Tabletop at 6 o'clock, so I'll be doing the Pokemon Tabletop stream after I'm finished with this. Though Sarah has not been seen for 20 years, her gargoyles still watch over our city and punish the guilty. From Ghost in the Abbey Matron. I like the artwork. The artwork looks pretty cool. And it has protection from red, so it would be good against decks that use red. It couldn't be hit with burn spells. But 5 mana is a little bit costly for it. Abbey Matron, 3 mana, 1/3, pay white, tap it, +3 toughness. Yeah, you pay white and you tap it, it gets +3 toughness until end of turn. So it could block and become a 1/6. The matrons are kindly souls, but don't ask one for an ale. You know, the Dwarven Trader. Oh, this matron here doesn't look kind at all. Got different artwork. This artwork looks like Roddy Piper. The matrons still say Sarah is coming back. I bet she never existed. Aether Storm for 4 mana enchantment. No creature spells may be cast. Any player may pay 4 life to destroy this enchantment. I do love the rain, but this storm feels somehow wrong, Taser. Quoted by Dari. This is a unique card. If you don't need to be playing creatures in your deck, you can play the Aether Storm to slow down your opponent if they have an aggressive deck. However, they can just pay the 4 life, and then your enchantment goes to the graveyard. If you have ways to recur your enchantments back to the battlefield, Aether Storm's a good way for them to have to constantly pay 4 life if they want to cast creatures. Alaban's Tower, 2 mana instant. Target blocking creature gets +3 power and +1 toughness until end of turn. Those who hide in hollow towers would do well to remember the rain. From Rayhan the Samite Alchemist. Never seen this card before. And it got reprinted here. People of Aeson built their roads with stones from these wonders. Alaban would be pleased with their ingenuity. From Baki the Wizard Attendant. It's weird that a card like a tower is like an instant spell. I assume it's just like a tower that gets constructed right from the ground with magic. Ambush. 4 mana, all blocking creatures gain first strike until end of turn. Don't these goons have anything better to do? From Joskin the Unhava Constable. I'm not sure who got ambushed here, the people or the goblins. The goblins look scared, so maybe they were the ones that got ambushed. Ambush Party. 5 mana, 3/1. First strike. They can attack when they enter the battlefield. So they have haste. First strike, haste, 5 mana, 3/1. Call it a lost cost of doing business. The best way to protect against thieves is to hire better thieves. From Aaron the Relentless. The artwork's cool. These two are about to rush these guards who look distracted in conversation. Image Party gets different artwork. The roads to Kosen Keep are mostly safe these days. Mostly. They're going to ambush these party here. Anaba Ancestor. 1/1 Minotaur. You can tap it to give target Minotaur +1/+1 to end of turn. The ancestors are the wisdom of the tribe and the soul of the homelands. I am eternally in their debt. Taster. Anaba Bodyguard. Minotaur. 4 mana, 2/3 first strike. All Minotaurs, not all Minotaurs are tribal. Some are freelance. Aaron the Relentless. Minotaur would not get a lot of creatures to support it as a relevant creature type until much later, and I think in Commander they would make cards that make Minotaurs better. Not someone to pick a fight with unless you're fond of pain. Different artwork of the bodyguard. Anaba Shaman, 4 mana, 2/2. You can pay a red and tap it to deal 1 damage to any target. The Shamans, they are mere craven cows not capable of true magic. From Irini Senger. The fact that you have to pay a red and tap it to deal 1 damage to anything makes it kind of like a slow motion pinger. Few master the power of earth as well. Few master the powers of the earth as well as do the shamans of the Minotaurs. By Baki. Anaba Spirit Crafter, 4 mana, 1/3. All Minotaurs get +1 power. Spirit Crafters sing of all people. They sing of those lost, those found, and of those who are yet to be. Onata the Anaba Shaman. This is like a weaker Minotaur Lord. What Lords usually are is they give +1/+1 to all creatures of its corresponding creature type. Fortunately, instead of giving all Minotaur +1/+1, it only does it for their power. Anhava Constable, 3 mana, 2/1 with toughness +X. X is equal to the total number of green creatures on the battlefield. So it counts himself. So 3 mana, 2/2, not bad. So the fact that his toughness could get larger based on the amount of green creatures that are on the battlefield. If you have a deck that puts a lot of tokens out and they're green, then he would have some pretty high toughness. Joskin and the other constables serve with passion, if not with grace. From Devon, the Fairy Noble. Anhava Inn, you gain 1 + X life, where X is equal to the number of green creatures in play. So that's a recurring theme in the set for green. Inn was ever a steady source of good cheer and kindness. Greatly do I miss it now that I am gone. Ajan Shade. Anhava Township. It is a very costly, not value-wise, but mana-wise, triple a land that taps for 3 colors, 1 at a time. You can tap it for a colorless. You can pay a colorless and tap it to get a green. You can pay 2 colorless and tap it for a white. And the same with a red. I did not know these lands existed. Folk of good heart will always find a home. If you're really that hard up for that corresponding mana, but these lands are severely outdated. Anzarin Runes, 4 mana enchantment. Choose a creature type. Creatures of that type do not untap during their controller's untap step. The Anzarins have served me well ever since I first killed them. By Baron Singer. This definitely hoses creature tribal decks, especially like goblins, elves, merfolk. This would definitely slow them down. Apocalypse Chime, 2 mana. You pay 2 and tap it, sacrifice it, destroy all cards from the Homelands expansion. one of those set hosing cards. One day or another, perhaps I shall ring my pretty chime loudly so that all may hear. Grandmother Singer. Autumn Willow. 6 mana 4/4 cannot be the target of spells or abilities. You can pay a green. Target player may target her with spells or abilities until end of turn. We must shake her limbs and rattle her brains. From Grandmother Singer. So she's an avatar. I guess if you want to put a creature enchantment on her or target her with a spell, you can pay a green and she's able to be targeted again. It's still saying until end of turn, Autumn Willow can be the target of spells controlled by target player as though it didn't have Shroud. If you're playing a team game, you can cast this ability. If your teammate has a spell to boost her up, then this is where it becomes the target player relevant. Ace and Abbey. It's the slow triple land for white, blue, and green. Seraph's gift to her people, a symbol of faith and hope. Ace and Bureaucrats. 2 mana 1/1. Tap it, target creature with power, or tap target creature with power no greater than 2. I would say that our bureaucrats are no better than vipers, but I shouldn't insult the vipers. Alan Rabanowitz, the artist here, did really good as far as like facial expressions and the hand gestures of these bureaucrats. Here's a different one. All the tortures of my vault of horrors pale in comparison to dealing with those petty bureaucrats. Ace and Crusader. 4 mana 2/2. Its power and toughness get plus X, where X is the number of heroes you control. A renegade rallying the rabble does not a true crusader make. It sounds like something Yoda would say. But is heroes... Okay, so heroes got changed to soldiers and warriors. So I was about to say I've never seen hero as a creature type in the game. Ace and Highway. 6 mana enchantment. All white creatures gain Planeswalk. Tread the roads of righteousness, Marat, lest you lose your way and be consumed. Barris the Serra Inquisitor. I don't know why you would ever run this card. Because if you're playing white and you give all white creatures Planeswalk, if the opponent has any white creatures, you're running white. You're most likely running planes if you're running this card. That means their creatures are going to be unblockable against you. If your opponent is not playing white, then you have a dead card in your hand because this card does nothing. The only way you could combo with this card is with those blue cards that change the land walk ability on the said cards. Baki's Curse. For 4 mana, Baki's Curse does 2 damage to each creature for each creature enchantment on that creature. Those who fling spells too quickly should have reason to regret it. Blue has weird direct damage spells. Baron Senger, the legendary vampire. 8 mana 5/5, that's pretty costly. He has flying. Whenever a creature is put into the graveyard, if Baron Senger damaged that creature, put a +2/+2 counter on Baron Senger. And you can tap him to regenerate target vampire. So he can regenerate himself because he's a vampire. Beast, Defiler, the source of all my pain, Asian Shade. He is the main antagonist in the Homelands set. Beast Walkers, 3 mana 2/2. You can pay a green, they gain banding until end of turn. Banding. The Beast Walkers do a great service to Aeson as humans or as beasts. Their heart is yet to Sarah true. I don't know what this weird... I don't know if this guy's meant to look like a bird, and that's why he's a Beast Walker. He's got a beak here, and his coat looks like feathers on wings. Ooh, I like the art on this card. I've never seen it. Black Carriage, 5 mana 4/4 trample. Does not untap during your untap step. You have to sacrifice a creature during your upkeep to untap the carriage. The Baron's drivers are also the driven. Chandler. It's not really that good because of its upkeep cost, but But a lot of black creatures did not have trample unless they were like a demon. Oh, it's a horse now instead of a carriage. Interesting. Broken Visage for 5 mana. Destroy target non-artifact creature that's attacking and put a shadow token onto the battlefield. Treat this token as a black creature with power and toughness equal to the creature destroyed by Broken Visage. Sacrifice the shadow token at the end of your turn. So you destroy an attacking creature, you put a copy of that creature onto the battlefield. You'll be able to block with it, and then you have to sacrifice it at the end of the turn anyway. So a cool combat trick, but it is a little costly. Carapace. For 1 green, enchant a creature gets +2 toughness. You can sacrifice the Carapace to regenerate the creature that it enchants. The tougher to crack, the sweeter the snack. Kakra the Sea Troll. Here's another artwork for Carapace. Now that's a fashion statement. Castle Singer is black, blue, and red. Tri-land. Where hope has no champion, evil rules all. Cemetery Gate, 0/5, protect you from black. It's cool that this zombie's trying to get through to, I assume it's our point of view. It keeps some out, yes. It also keeps others in. Grandmother Singer. Here's Cemetery Gate from further away. Just the place for a picnic. Morant the Death Speaker. Chain Stasis. I've never seen this card. 1 blue. Tap or untap target creature. Whenever a player uses Chain Stasis to tap or untap a creature, that creature's controller may pay a blue and 2 colors to use Chain Stasis to tap or untap another target creature. Here we go again, Kakra the Sea Troll. So it's like Chain Lightning, but with tapping or untapping a spell. Chandler, 5 mana, 3/3. You can pay triple red and tap him to destroy an artifact creature. Never brag about the latest wonder you've created, students. Chandler might be listening. From Rebecca, the Wizard Savant. Clockwork Gnomes, 4 mana, 2/2. You can pay a 3 and tap it to regenerate target artifact creature. They can regenerate themselves. Until I came to the floating island, I never had to oil the servants. Clockwork Steed, 4 mana. Well, Clockwork cards we hadn't seen in a couple sets. This brings one of them back. Cannot be blocked by artifact creatures. When Clockwork Steed enters the battlefield, put 4 +1 power counters on it. At end of combat, if the Clockwork Steed attacked or blocked, remove one of those counters. Pay X and tap it to put X power +1 counters on the steed. It cannot have more than 4 counters on it at any time, and you can only do this during your upkeep. Too bad it doesn't have trample like the Black Carriage does. Bad card. Clockwork Swarm. 4 mana, 0/3, cannot be blocked by walls. It has the same ability as the horse does. It just can't be blocked by walls. I thought it would have had flying, since there's a bunch of dragonfly here. It is an artifact creature insect, so that's interesting. Coral Reef. For 2 blue, when Coral Reef enters the battlefield, put 4 polyp counters on it. You can sacrifice an island to put 2 polyp counters on Coral Reef. Pay a blue, tap target blue creature you control, and remove a poly counter from Coral Reef to put a +0/+1 counter on any creature. So you can permanently boost your creature's toughness 4 times before you have to start sacrificing islands to get the 2. I never knew that card existed. Dark Maze, 5 mana, 4/5. Dark Maze can attack this turn. At the end of the turn, remove it from the game. Dark Maze cannot attack the turn it enters the battlefield. So it's a wall that can attack, albeit just once. The Path of Faith is fortunately fraught with failure. Here's the other side of the Dark Maze. Stray not into the path of darkness or be lost forever. Daughter of Autumn. 2/4 for 4 mana. You can pay a white. Redirect to Daughter of Autumn. 1 damage dealt to a white creature. Those who say that Sarah is dead have never met the Autumn Willow's daughters. They are as kind and as generous as Sarah would wish us to be. Gulson the Abbey Matron. So Autumn Willow, I assume, is on the left of this artwork, and Daughter of Autumn is on the right. Death Speakers. 1/1 for 1 white. They have protection from black. Such innocent little birds, they sing a sweet song sitting on their fragile branch. Good against pestilence decks and black. Didgeridoo. These are like Australian giant woodwind flutes, if you would. Sound like oi 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 oi, just more deeper. For 1 mana, you can pay 3. Put a Minotaur from your hand and put it directly onto the battlefield. If you have a creature with the Changeling ability that counts as every creature, these apply to them as well. You can use the changing cards of text, changing Minotaur to a different creature type, depending on what your deck is. Dragons would be especially good because a lot of dragons cost 5 mana or more. So to be able to cheat them out for only 3 mana, and you don't even have to tap the artifact to do it either. So I guess there's a reason why the Minotaur weren't as powerful, because with the Didgeridoo, they probably would have created a more chaotic play state. Play the song of He Who Delivered Us. Play the song of Faraz. Drudge spell. 2 black enchantment. Pay a black, remove from the game 2 target creatures in your graveyard and put a skeleton token onto the battlefield. Treat this token as a 1/1 black creature with regenerate. If Drudge Skeleton leaves the battlefield, or if Drudge spell leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all skeleton tokens. I forgot about this card. It was in one of my first black decks. Dry spell deals 1 damage to each creature and player for 2 mana. Wherever water is lacking, all things suffer. Dead fish. And here's another one where some knight died in the desert. My soul thirsts for Sarah's salvation, as does my body for life's breath. Dwarven Pony for 1 red. Pay 2. Tap it. Target dwarf gets mountain walk until end of turn. I hear Helena's got a pony that can count to 6 and likes to eat meat. Weird card. Dwarven Sea Clan, 3 mana 1/1, tap it. At end of combat, Dwarven Sea Clan deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Use this ability only if that creature's controller controls any islands. No dwarf alive can best one of my crew dead. Zeki the Reef Pirate. I did not know that they had dwarves on ships. I would think dwarves would not really be that good on the sea. They're more akin and attuned to the land. Dwarven Trader, 1/1 for just 1 red. Their definition of fair profit is certainly novel. I can tell Margaret Organ King did a lot of artwork for this set. Here's the other side of Margaret. I think that might be a theme. She did like a panorama, and they just made the artwork into 2 different. They like cut the picture in half and put the artwork on each card. They wouldn't sell their own families, at least not for cheap. Zeki the Reef Pirate. He really hates dwarves. Talking down to them like that. Ebony Rhino. 7 mana 4/5 trample. That rhino would fetch us a tidy sum, Joven. Perhaps it's time to make it ours. 7 mana for a 4/5 trample. That costs too much. Aaron the Relentless. 5 mana 5/2. He has haste, so he can attack the turn he comes into the battlefield, and he can regenerate for 3 red mana. Aaron would much be less of a hassle if only he were mortal. Raham the Semi-Alchemist. Now, it's weird he's not a black creature, because if he's... but I guess he uses a lot of fire magic. And back in this time, 1995 and prior, Red had a lot of creatures that could regenerate. Upton Troll is another one that comes to mind. Red would definitely lose that ability very soon in the set after this. But it's a good card. 5 mana for a 5/2 haste isn't bad at all, and the fact that it can regenerate is really good. 2 toughness holds it back from being superb, and the fact that it's legendary means you can only have 1 out on the battlefield at a time. Evaporate for 3 mana. Evaporate deals 1 damage to each blue and white creature. The body is a temple with a foundation of sand. Autumn Willow. Dry spell is just way better, and it's for black. This is I think it should be 2 damage to each blue and white creature, then it would be good. Because we have Pyroclasm, which does 2 mana, 2 damage to all creatures. So this wouldn't even be broken if it was 3 mana, do 2 damage to blue and white. Fairy Noble, 3 mana, 1/2 flying. All fairies you control get tough 1 +1 toughness. Fairies would eventually be black and blue later on, but for whatever reason, since I guess fairies come from the forest, Fairy Noble and other green fairies of its kind were dominantly green back in this day. You can tap it. All fairies you control get +1 power until end of turn. Fairies talk all in riddles and tricky bits, except the nobles. Now there's some straight talkers. Juskin the Anhava Constable. Feast of the Unicorn. 4 mana enchantment. Enchanted creature gets +4 power. Some delicacies are not to be savored, save by the callous. Baron Singer. And here's the artwork I remember. I was like, oh, unicorns are supposed to be sacred. But here they have killed one and served it. It definitely belongs in black because black does the audacious acts. Could there be a fouler act? No doubt the Baron knows of one. Nowadays, though, this card's not good. 4 mana just to get 4 power. Unless your creature's unblockable, I can't justify using it. Or has first strike. Faraz's Ban for 6 mana. Creature spells cost an additional 2 mana to cast. Without the protection of Faraz's Ban, I fear the homelands are lost. From Daria. Folk of Anhava, 1/1 for 1 green. If assigned as a blocker, Folk of Anhava get +2 power until end of turn. So they become a 3/1 if they're blocked. That's pretty good. This town's only for good folk. The rest can go to the city. Amen to that. Here's another one. There are those who accept being told what to do, what to think, and what to say. Then there are the folk of the Anhava. I would definitely live with them. Forget. For 2 blue, target player chooses and discards 2 cards from their hand. That player then draws as many cards as they discarded in this way. It's very situational against your opponent. I use Forget in my deck where I have to put my own creatures in the graveyard from my hand. So I use Forget to dump the big creatures that I need to reanimate, and hopefully I draw into a resurrection spell. Funeral March for 3 mana enchant creature. When enchanted creature leaves play, that creature's controller sacrifices a creature he or she controls. Ignore this effect if that player doesn't control any other creatures. This party is such fun, but it's a shame to mourn just one. So if the opponent has 2 creatures, if the one that has Funeral March on them dies, then they have to sacrifice the other creature. Ghost Hounds, 1/1 for 2 mana. Attacking doesn't cause them to tap, so they have Vigilance, not an ability black normally has. If assigned to block any white creatures, or any white creatures are assigned to block them, they get first strike until end of turn. A good counter to the white weenie strategy. Ghost Hounds is my favorite card from the set so far. And they are now dog spirits. I did not know that, so they would go good in either a dog or spirit deck. Giant Albatross, 2 mana, 1/1 flying. If it's so giant, why is it just a 1/1? Pay 2, destroy all creatures that damage Giant Albatross this turn. The controller of any of those creatures may pay 2 life to prevent that creature from being destroyed. Use this ability only if Giant Albatross dies. Definitely a weird ability. Here's another artwork for it. He has a saddle, but where's its rider? Giant Oyster, 4 mana 0/3. You may choose not to untap it during your untap step. You can tap it. Target tap creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. During your upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on the tapped creature. If Giant Oyster becomes untapped or leaves the battlefield, remove all these counters from the creature. So the Giant Oyster will pretty much close on a creature that's tapped. And at the beginning of your turn, not only is that creature trapped, it can't attack, it can't block, it can't use its abilities. It gets weaker. I guess it's either drowning or getting digested. I don't know if clams even digest. But eventually, if the creature has toughness small enough, after so many turns, the locked creature will die. If the oyster gets destroyed or somehow untapped, then the oyster opens up and frees the creature, and the creature goes back to normal. I like the flavor on the card. And by flavor, I mean how its ability, just you can picture it in your head. Grandmother Singer, 5 mana. What is she? A wizard? Pay 2 and tap her. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. 5 mana, 3/3. Rarely have power and mana been so delightfully wed as they have in Our Dear Grandmother from Baron Singer. Not a good card at all. Greater Werewolf, 5 mana, 2/4. At end of combat, put a -0/-2 counter on all creatures blocking or blocked by Greater Werewolf. The wolf things are no mere beasts, but the lieutenants of the Baron. Taser. Hasdur the Abbot, 5 mana. Pay X, tap him, redirect to him X damage dealt to any other white creature you control. Soon Sarah will return and choose the Abbot's successor, else we are all lost. Weird card. He sacrifices himself to save another creature. Headstone, 2 mana. Exile from the game target card in any graveyard. You get to draw an additional card at the beginning of the next upkeep. Your headstone is the last page in the book of your life. Damn. That's deep. No pun intended. Heartwolf, 4 mana, 2/2 with first strike. Tap it, target dwarf gains first strike until end of turn. The dwarf also gets +2 power. If the dwarf leaves play, sacrifice Heartwolf. Use this ability only during the combat phase. Not that good. Didn't know dwarves had wolves either. Hungry Mist. I had this card in my first green deck. 4 mana, 6/2. That's pretty good. During your upkeep, you have to pay 2 green to keep it alive, or you have to sacrifice it. All things must eat. After all, even the air can hunger. So it has become an elemental. It's weird that Hungry Mist is green. I would think it'd either be black or blue. Here's another artwork for it. This one definitely looks more, how can I say this? Substantial, like it actually looks like a monster, whereas this one was just sizzling gas that was, I assume, decomposing this corpse. If the air must feed, let it take the self-righteous. Yeah, it should be a black card, not a green card. Ishan Shade, 6 mana, 5/5, protection from white. Ishan the weak, Ishan the fallen, Ishan the betrayer. He has brought shame to the Sarah Paladins where none existed before. May his suffering equal his betrayal, by Barris the Sarah Inquisitor. So he used to be a knight that was part of the Sarah Paladins, and he made a deal, I think, with Baron Sanger and sold his soul, and he is now in immortal servitude for the vampire family, for the Singers. He's only good against white, and even then, all he has going for him is protection. he can still die to Wrath of God or any kind of destroy all creatures spell. So he's been outdated, even though he does look badass. Irini Singer, 4 mana. She's a vampire dwarf. White enchantments, and green enchantments each cost an additional 2 to cast. That cruel being brings shame to all her fellow dwarves and misery to all the land. She is Singer's daughter in spirit, if not in blood. So this is good against, because white and green are very enchantment heavy colors. So this would slow down enchantment strategies. Ironclaw Curse. For 1 red, target creature gets, or no, it's an enchantment. Enchanted creature gets toughness -1. That creature cannot be assigned to block any creature with power greater than or equal to the creature that Iron Curse enchants. So like the Ironclaw orcs from one of the earlier sets, they can't block any creature with power or toughness greater than their power. This puts it on any creature. You would put it on your opponent's creature so they won't be able to block. Jinx. For 2 mana, target land becomes a basic land type of your choice until end of turn. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. What wizards upset the land suit and rights? Another example of a temporary land changing card. We're more than halfway through the set. Joven. For 5 mana, 3/3. Pay triple red and tap it. Destroy target non-creature artifact. Joven, you're almost as good a thief as I, but Aaron hates you even more. He is better than Chandler, because Chandler only destroys artifact creatures. Joven destroys non-creature artifacts, which I think are more important. Like the mana stones, the mana rocks, artifacts that do powerful things like Never Renewal's Disc. There are even cards that you can turn things into artifacts, and then Joven can destroy them as long as they're not creatures. Good card. Joven's Ferrets. 1/1 for 1 green. If they're declared as an attacker, Joven's Ferrets gets +2 toughness until end of turn. At end of combat, tap any creatures that block the ferrets. Those creatures do not untap during their untap step. I assume the ferrets have venom that paralyzes who they block. I'm not sure. Joven's Tools, 6 mana artifact. That's pretty costly. Pay 4, tap it. Target creature cannot be blocked except by walls this turn. If that thief Joven ever shows his head around here again, make sure he leaves without it. The fact that you can make any creature unblockable, it has good late game potential. Early game, this card, I mean, there is no early game with this. It costs 6 mana. So that's what holds it back, the 6 mana. But if the game is long and drawn out, and if both sides have a bunch of defenses out, Joven's Tools, making a creature unblockable, could get you to the victory. Costkin Falls, 4 mana, enchant world. During your upkeep, tap target untapped creature you control or sacrifice Costkin Falls. No creature can attack you unless its controller pays an additional 2 whenever that creature attacks. I did not know Black had a card like this. Later on in a set, we would have Propaganda, which would be a blue card that says the opponent has to pay 2 for each creature to attack you. And then White would get a version of it. I forgot what the version is called. But we'll get to that in a future set. Koskin Keep, the black-red-green tri-land. Treachery and Anarchy make poor partners. Labyrinth Minotaur, 4 mana, 1/4. Creatures Labyrinth Minotaur is assigned to block do not untap during their controller's next untap step. I doubt any Labyrinth Minotaurs still live, but then again, we Minotaurs are stubborn beings. It's weird seeing a blue Minotaur, but I did have this card in my Minotaur deck. Not a good card at all. Minotaurs should just stay red. There's a different artwork of it that I've never seen. Legend says they got a treasure cave, but it doesn't say where to find it. Zeki the Reef Pirate. Having just 1 power, just the opponent's probably not going to want to block them. Leaping Lizard, 2 mana or 3 mana, 2/3. You can pay a green and a colors. It gets flying and -1 toughness until end of turn. So it becomes a 2/2 flyer for 2. I never question the Autumn Willow about her motives, not even when she turns people into lizards. It's her way. Devin the Fairy Noble. A lot of green creatures don't have flying. This is a way for the creature to jump, so to speak, and get flying until end of turn. Leeches for 3 mana. Target player loses all poison counters. Leeches deals 1 damage to that player for each poison counter removed in this way. Where our potions and powders fail, perhaps nature will succeed. This is one of the first cards that would stop poison decks from being able to beat you. Because we had like Pit Scorpion, Marsh Viper. There was another one that had poison counters on it. I forget. But Leeches was a counter to that. Mammoth Harness for 4 mana, enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses flying. If any creature is assigned to block the creature that Mammoth Harness enchants, that creature gains first strike until end of turn. So it's so heavy the creature can't fly. But if any creature blocks it, that creature gets first strike until end of turn. Not really that good. Marchon, 7 mana, 8/8 Serpent. He does not untap during your untap step. He cannot attack if the defending player controls any island, or if the defending player does not control an island, he cannot attack. But anytime you don't have any islands, you must sacrifice Marchon. You could pay 2 blue and sacrifice a creature to untap him. You could only use this ability during your upkeep. You could also pay 2 blue and give him power -1 until end of turn. Marchon deals 1 damage to target attacking creature without flying. His second ability, the bottom ability, is probably the only one worth using. You could still use it even if he is tapped. This card, excuse me. I still have it. One of my brothers had a good green card called Weatherseed Treefolk, and he traded it with one of my neighbors who came over for this Marchon card because he saw like it's 8/8, 7 mana 8/8. He thought it was a really good card as opposed to what he traded. Weatherseed Treefolk is a 5/3, but whenever it dies, it goes to your hand instead of the graveyard. So the Weatherseed Treefolk was a better card. So I had to go back because I knew the kid in school, and I had to trade some cards I had to give my brother his Weatherseed Treefolk back. But I still have this card that the Marchon, and I've actually used it in my Sea Serpent deck. Its last ability did help out a bit, but you have to have like a lot of mana open to do so. I like the artwork though. At first I thought this was just a fish and this was a huge viper eel, but this is actually a humpback whale maybe, or a blue whale. No, a sperm whale. I need to relearn my whales. So look at the size of, unless this is like he's gonna eat the whale, so this has to be a massive size sea serpent. Love the artwork on it. Memory Lapse. 2 mana, counter target spell, put that spell on top of its owner's library instead of the graveyard. What was I saying? I have a lot of memory lapses when I do these streams. Hey, Vinny. Marchon is a god. He does rank as one of the most powerful sea serpents in Magic. Here's another artwork for Memory Lapse. Oh, I had a conscious once, but alas, I seem to have forgotten where I put it. Merchant Scroll. For 2 mana, search your library for a blue instant or interrupt. Reveal that card to all players and put it into your hand. Reshuffle your library afterwards. Merchant Scroll. So that's actually a good card because it lets you search for any blue instant. If you're using a counterspell deck and you need a counterspell, it'll search you for a counterspell. If you're using a deck that has other instants and you need it, Merchant Scroll is a cheap way to find it. There's no trade without trust. Aaron the Relentless. And Merchant Scroll goes to your graveyard, so if you have cards to get back, cards from your graveyard to put back in your hand, you can reuse the scroll and find a new instant or interrupt. But it has to be blue. That's the only drawback. Mesa Falcon, 2 mana 1/1, or Mesa Falcon. 2 mana 1/1 flying. You can pay a white and a colors to get a +1 toughness until end of turn. Face of Sarah is born on the wings of hope. That sounds very familiar. I think I've seen that flavor text before. Here's a more zoomed in view of the Falcon. Pretty Falcon, friend to Soraya, will you send her my greetings? Gemma the Willow Priestess. Mystic Decree. For 4 mana, all creatures lose flying and island walk. Curse Rebecca and curse her coddled conjurers. Their sorcerer's school shall yet be ours. Blue has a lot of creatures with flying, so you would definitely want to avoid putting creatures with flying if you're using Mystic Decree. Narwhal. For 4 mana, 2/2. Narwhal, living in the ocean. It has first strike and protection from red. Not a lot of blue creatures have first strike. Who needs a spear? You break off the horn and you stab the fish with it. Easy. Conquer the sea troll. The fact that it's a whale, I'm surprised with so many cards in blue that with creatures that live in the ocean that Narwhal didn't have the ability a lot of the sea serpents have. They couldn't attack unless the defending player controlled an island. Stuff like that. Narwhal's okay. Good against red. Orcish Mine. 3 mana. It's an enchantment that goes on a land. If he hits that, I think this cave's gonna... that orc's gonna get crushed. When Orcish Mine enters the battlefield, put 3 ore counters on it. During your upkeep, whenever the enchanted land becomes tapped, remove an ore counter from it. When the last ore counter is removed from Orcish Mine, destroy the land it enchants, and then Orcish Mine deals 2 damage to the land's controller. So it's a slow motion land destructing card. Slow motion Stone Rain. I didn't know it existed, but you would want to use Stone Rain instead of that card. Primal Order. For 4 mana, during each player's upkeep, Primal Order deals 1 damage to that player for each non-basic land they control. This is a really, really good card. I did not know it existed, and it makes me want to say Homelands isn't as weak of a set as I thought it was. This card would annihilate in Commander and any decks that run 2 colors or more, because they most likely have a lot of non-basic lands used. It's strange, but I can feel it when the land is corrupted. I understand why the Autumn Willow is so protective. I thought the card would be worth more money. Prophecy. This person's looking at Ishan's Shade. For 1 white, reveal the top card of target opponent's library to all players. If it's a land, you gain a life. That opponent then shuffles their library. Draw a card at the beginning of the next upkeep. It's weird for white. Rashka the Slayer. 5 mana, 3/3 archer. Human archer. She can block creatures with flying, so she has reach. If she blocks any black creature, she gets +1/+2 into end of turn, making her a 4/5. Rarely be the prey so haughty as to hunt the hunter. She's after Baron Senger. Reef Pirates. 3 mana, 2/2. When they damage any opponent, take the top card of their library and put it into their graveyard. Corpses for crew don't sit well with me. Zeki and his dead ship had best keep their distance. Joskin the Anhava Constable. This is skeleton ship. Oh, zombie pirates. That's interesting. Again, I'm surprised they can attack players that don't have islands. Here's the actual crew. Zeki sails with a dead crew, not out of villainy, but pragmatism. Zombie pirates. Renewal. For 3 mana, sacrifice the land to search your library for a basic land and put it directly onto the battlefield. This does not count towards your land limit. Reshuffle your library afterwards. Draw a card at the beginning of the next turn. Not good, because you're still down a land. Retribution. For 4 mana, choose 2 creatures controlled by an opponent. Destroy one of those creatures and put a -1/-1 counter on the other. The opponent chooses which creature is destroyed. Weird card for red. Red does not have a lot of destroy target cards unless it's land or artifact. But the fact that your opponent gets to choose of one of the two, which is destroyed and which gets weaker, weakens the card. And it does have to target both creatures. Rebecca, the Wizard Savant. It looks like a Native American. And that's a cool looking dragon sea serpent. 4 mana 0/1. You can tap him. He deals 2 damage to target creature or player and does not untap during the next untap step. So he can actually damage the player for 2, but he doesn't untap during the untap step. This is where you would need cards like tap or untap target creature. It's nice to see a sister dwarf in a position of such power, but why'd it have to be one of those seafaring mule heads? Helena the Dwarven Trainer. Is this a dwarf wizard? Yes, she is. Roots. 4 mana enchant creature, tap target creature without flying. That creature doesn't untap during its untap step. A green enchantment to lock the opponent or one of the creatures down. That which nourishes can also bind. Root Spider, 4 mana 2/2. If assigned as a blocker, Root Spider gains first strike until end of turn and power +1. So he'll become a 4 mana 3/2 first strike if it blocks. They're not half as fierce if you don't see them coming. Devin the Fairy Noble. As much as I like spiders, Ghost Hounds is still going to be my favorite card. Roterothopter. 1 mana or 0/2 for 1 flying. You can pay 2 colors to give it power +1 until end of turn. You cannot spend more than 4 colors mana in this way. So this is actually decent. Early game, you can cast it for 1. It could be a blocker, it could block 1/1s all day long. It has flying. And then late game, if it's still alive, you can start attacking with it. And the extra mana you have left over, you can pay twice to give it +2 power, and you can hit for 2. The Roterothopter is as insidious as it is ingenious. It is one of those few creations of our school that I take no pride in. It is outdated by a lot of cards, though, and easily killed to removal. Rhysorian Badger, 3 mana 2/2. It looks like he's playing. Is the Badger like playing drums on this skull with the bones? If Rhysorian Badger attacks and is not blocked, you may choose to have it deal no damage to defending player this turn. If you do so, remove from the game up to 2 target creatures from that player's graveyard. Gain 1 life for each creature removed in this way. That's cool. Green gives green another chance to exile creatures from the opponent's graveyard while getting some life gain along the way. It is outdated though, because I don't think they have cards anymore where you have to sacrifice combat damage in order for the ability to trigger. Semi-Alchemist with a weird facial expression. 4 mana, 0/2. Prevent up to 4 damage to a creature you control. Tap that creature. That creature doesn't untap during your next untap step. Powders and potions are nothing compared to Faith. The fact that creature is disabled and you still have to pay 2 mana and tap it. 4 mana, not a good card. The artwork's better for this one. The wisest of the Aeson dwell not in the abbey, but in the laboratory. Caser. Sea Sprite, 2 mana, 1/1 fairy, flying, protection from red. No one can catch what won't be caught. Very good card against red. Sea Troll, 3 mana, 2/1, pay blue to regenerate. Use this ability only a turn in which Sea Troll blocked a blue creature or a blue creature blocked Sea Troll. I was going to say blue doesn't have a lot of creatures with regenerate. I know there's a spiny starfish. I think in the next set in Alliances that has regenerate. But the fact that Sea Troll only gets it if he's against a blue creature definitely makes it bad, and he only has 1 toughness. I've seen those trolls devour a drowning sailor faster than his lungs could fill with water. Senger Autocrat. 4 mana 2/2. When Senger Autocrat comes into play, Put 3 surf tokens onto the battlefield. Treat these tokens as 0/1 black creatures. When the autocrat leaves play, sacrifice all surf tokens. A thankless job and a death sentence besides. If you need creatures to sacrifice, just cast the autocrat and you get 4 creatures for the price of 1. And I know there are a lot of good cards for black where you have to sacrifice a creature during your upkeep. Senger Bats, 3 mana, 1/2 flying. Whenever a creature is put in the graveyard the same turn Senger Bats damage them, put a +1/+1 counter on Senger Bats. So it's just like the Senger Vampire ability with Baron Senger as well. They're the eyes of the Baron and they know your fears. Here's the artwork that I have of these. In the face of everyone, I see the Baron. Sarah Aviary. Oh, these Macaws are cute. 4 mana, all creatures with flying get +1/+1. Sarah, like Faraz, is long since dead, but remember, Daria, her spirit shall survive so as long as the Homelands do. Pacer. Since it also helps your opponent, it's not so good. The Sarah Bestiary. For 2 white, during your upkeep, pay 2 white or sacrifice Sarah Bestiary. Target creature cannot attack, block, or use any abilities requiring an activation cost. I'm not sure what kind of creature here is trapped, but it looks like it could still do some damage to whoever's in this cave with its tongue and its whip-like tail. I think this is a Thrall. We're on the last page. Sarah Inquisitors, 5 mana. This guy looks like Quentin Tarantino. 5 mana, 3/3. If assigned to block any black creatures or any black creatures are assigned to block it, Sarah Inquisitors get +2 power until end of turn. They're okay against black, but outdated. Sarah Paladin, 4 mana, 2/2. Tap it to prevent 1 damage to any creature or player. You can pay 3 and tap it. Attacking does not cause target creature to tap this turn. So you give target creature vigilance until end of turn as well. Would that I could be a paladin again, but the dead hold no place among their ranks. Zishun Shades regretting his deal that he made with the Baron. I wish they had better power and toughness, and I think Sarah Paladin should have vigilance itself to be good. Serrated Arrows, probably power for power, at least back in the day, Serrated Arrows was a really good card. 4 mana artifact that enters the battlefield with 3 arrowhead counters on it. During your upkeep, you have to sacrifice the arrows if there are no arrowhead counters on it. You can tap it to remove an arrowhead counter to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. And the reason why it was a good card, it was a good way around creatures with regeneration. Regeneration had few answers to it back in the day, with the exception of a couple black spells. And I know there are each color does have a way to handle it, but Serrated Arrows could go in any deck since it was an artifact. So if you're running a burn spell and creatures with regeneration, a burn deck and creatures with regeneration were holding you back, you could put Serrated Arrows in there, and it would give you a more fighting chance against those creatures that would otherwise be immortal with regeneration. Oh, and to this day, it still works with indestructible creatures, too. If at any time a creature's toughness is 0, then the creature just goes to the graveyard. Shrink. For 1 green, target creature gets power -5 until end of turn. The smallest beast can yet have the greatest heart. Or I guess this knight, he was going against this warrior here, and he shrunk. He's going to get stepped on. And I think this is a hound or kobold or something. He shrunk as well. Do not fear adversity. Let your courage be your strength. Soraya the Falconer. All falcons get +1/+1. Did that get changed to birds? Oh, yes it did. Birds get +1/+1. Target bird gains banding until end of turn. I don't care about the banding ability. The Bird Lord is cool though. 3 mana 2/2, good card. Soraya speaks with the hunters of the air, as do all of her family line. So if you have a bird deck, definitely get at least one copy of Soraya the Falconer. Spectral Bears, 2 mana, 3/3, way better than Grizzly Bears, but they do have a drawback. If Spectral Bears is declared as an attacker and the defending player does not have any black creatures, they do not untap during your next untap step. I hear there are bears or spirits that guard caravans passing through the forest. So they are a really good card against black. But if they aren't against black, then you'll only be able to attack with them every other turn. 2 mana 3/3 is a good cost though. Temerian Fiends, 3 mana 1/1. Remove them from the game before playing if you're not playing for Ante. Ante strikes again. You would normally pay 3 black to sacrifice them to destroy target artifact that any opponent owns in. Sacrifice Temerian Fiends to destroy target artifact that any opponent owns in your graveyard. Put Temerian Fiends into that opponent's graveyard. This changes ownership is permanent. The opponent may ante an additional card to counter this effect. Yeah, I'm so glad ante doesn't exist. I would not have played Magic if ante was mainstream. Oh, I forgot about this card. Torture. For 1 black, you put it on a creature, and then you pay a black and a colorless to put a -1/-1 counter on the creature that Torture enchants. It helps you pass the time until you die. A slower version of Serrated Arrows, and once the creature died, Torture went to the graveyard. Here's a different artwork of Torture, although I like this one more because the Torturer here is a lot more sinister. Oh, they scream right enough and plead too, but the Baron keeps no mercy in his vault of horrors. Trade Caravan. I'm not sure what this is. Giant Echidna? It's a giraffe. A polar bear. 1 mana, 1/1, Nomad. During upkeep, put a currency counter on them. You can remove 2 currency counters to untap target basic land. Use this ability only during any opponent's upkeep. I was about to say, wow, you could reuse a land on your turn, but you can only use it during your opponent's upkeep. So, not so good. Here's the rest of it, because the first part we saw in front. Here's a giant spider. Here's a giant turtle. A terror bird. Some guy pulling a wagon. Oh no, the terror bird's pulling the wagon. Something's pulling all these wagons. Just a weird assortment of hotspots. This reminds me of like Aladdin's Parade from the Disney's Aladdin. Truce for 3 mana. Each player may draw up to 2 cards. For each card less than 2 any player draws, that player gains 2 life. People of Ace and feed us, and we don't kill them. That's my kind of truce. I guess this is only good in a multiplayer game. Make friends. Veldrain of Singer. 7 mana, 5/5. You can pay 2 black and a colorless, and he gets Forest Walk and power -3 until end of turn. So when he goes in the forest, he gets weaker. He gets 2 power, and he can't be blocked if the opponent has a forest. Poor foolish Veldrain. He goes to wherever the Baron wills him. One day he'll go to die. I guess he's like a hitman for Baron Singer. He sucks though. 7 mana for this ability is not justifiable. Wall of Kelp. 0/3 for 2 blue. You can pay 2 and tap it to put a Kelp token onto the battlefield. Treat this token as a 0/1 wall. You can eat it or you can weave it, but you can't fight in it. Zeki the Reef Pirate. So this will just keep making, if left unchecked, it can keep making wall tokens. It can block the battlefield all day long. Willow Fairy, 2 mana, 1/2 flying. The Autumn Willow cannot be everywhere at once, and that's what her grandchildren are for. Go see the Abbin Matron. 1/2 flying for 2 is okay for green. There's another artwork of Willow Fairy, and this guy's gonna chuck some acorns with his butterfly wings. Swift as the wind and harder to catch. That's the fairies for you, Daria. So I think people of ancient times saw butterflies and dragonfly and they thought they were fairy. Willow Priestess. Oh, she has a little cub. That's cute. 4 mana, 2/2 fairy. Tap it. Take a fairy from your hand and put it directly on the battlefield as though it were summoned. Oh, I did not know that existed. And then you can pay 3. Target green creature gets protection from black until end of turn. So it's also good against black. Those of faith are those of strength. Decent card. Winter Sky. For 1 red, flip a coin. Target opponent calls heads or tails in the air. If the flip ends up in your favor, Winter Sky deals 1 damage to each creature and player. Otherwise, each player draws a card. That's weird for Winter Sky. Wizard School is the blue, white, black tri-land. The legacy of Feroz lives on. And that is it for Homelands. Nothing beats Ghost Towns in this set for me. I do have a lot of memories of the card and using it. And I do love the artwork. I can just hear their ghostly howls as they're hunting through the night. Before looking through this entire set, I always thought Homelands was one of the weakest expansions, but I did discover some cards that are very decent and would do really good in group games. So I have a better respect for Homelands now. This will wrap up this stream, and we will, I think, do Alliances is the next set next week. So I hope everybody's home safe and sound. And if not, I hope you get there, get to your homeland, and we will see you next time. Don't forget to comment on what your favorite cards from the set were, what memories you might have to them, and we'll see you again for the next Magic the Conversation. Take care.